And in a moment, I'll mute myself. Otherwise, I'll hear myself and us talking 30 seconds after we say it, which is always very complicated to maintain a conversation. I gotta find the volume control. There we go. And then we'll start the broadcast, which will start to let some folks file in. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm just great. How are you this wonderful day?
Very good. Very good. It's starting to be fall, right? It's pumpkin spice season, and everything like that. How is the weather there in Kansas City area?
We are getting ready to have some fall as well, and we are getting ready to head up towards the Northeast to go look at the fall leaves. So I am really glad to be doing that. And speaking of pumpkin, I have at least 3 or more boxes of pumpkin spice Cheerios that I've added into my pantry, and they are delicious. I love them. They are the best snack ever. I snack on Cheerios. I admit I am a pumpkin spice Cheerio addict.
They really only have them this time of year. I never even seen pumpkin spice Cheerios.
I learned last year. I saw them and I thought, that's kind of cool. And I didn't buy any. And the next time I went to get some, they were gone. So now, whenever I see them, I may buy 2 to 5 boxes at a time because they are not always there. So,
all right, anyway. You want to kick us off today, Michelle?
Absolutely. Welcome, everybody, to another QB Power Hour. Today's topic is managing inventory in QuickBooks Online with a special guest, Katana. We're very glad to have them joining us today. My name is Michelle Long. I am a CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success, speaker for Intuit, author of 5 different books. Check them out on Intuit, and co-host of QB Power Hour for a long time with Dan DeLong. You can check out those links and join our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Dan, go ahead.
Yep, my name is Dan DeLong, owner at Danwith, worked at Intuit nearly 18 years, co-hosting today also at School of Bookkeeping, where we do a workshop Wednesday. Oddly enough, it's on Wednesdays. And doing wrapping up the finishing touches on the tech editing for the QBO for Dummies series. Always thought that was a weird title for books, to be acknowledging that you are a dummy by buying the book. But we'll actually have next time on the Power Hour the author of the QBO for Dummies book. He's actually created a way to download QBO desktop data and be able to access it in Excel. He's got a couple chapters in the book about he's a real good power user of Excel, and he's going to be coming on to talk about that process next QB Power Hour. And we have a guest. So Shawn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shawn Coultice. I'm head of channel partnerships at Katana. I've been in manufacturing and inventory management for about the last 10 to 12 years. Started out prior to that actually working at a manufacturer myself out of university. I've got 2 young children, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old boy, and it is a little bit colder this morning, so they were putting on their fall jackets for sure before heading off to school.
Well, we appreciate you joining us here today as we talk about and kind of unpack what you can do inside of QuickBooks Online with managing inventory. So a little bit of the details about the QB Power Hour. It's every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. They're not eligible for CPE credit. That was more of Hector Garcia's thing. And you can always check the website for upcoming events. Michelle, you were saying something about the VCon coming up. You want to talk a little bit about that, because we have to put that on the website.
Yes, tomorrow and Thursday is the mid-market VCon from Intuit. So if you'd like to register for that, I will put the link to register in the chat. There's up to 12 hours of CPE credit and a lot of great topics out there, including how to get those mid-market clients, advisory services, converting from desktop to online. I have a session on there on pricing and how to implement practical pricing. Great session. So I'll put the link if you're interested. That is tomorrow and Thursday. If you can't attend at all, go ahead and register and you can watch those recordings later.
Very good. And Now, one of the things I want to mention about the QB Power Hour webinar, Michelle and I, we do this, and it's free, right? And what we want to do, and what we always try to do, is make the QB Power Hour an educational experience. And but we want to be able to introduce new applications to the market, and that's why we have folks like Katana come on, so you can really help us keep it free by supporting the applications that we do bring on, and check them out. You don't have to do anything with that, but find out more information if you see a need or see a fit. Now, you can always go to the PDF or download the PDF for prior recordings or the podcasts on qbpowerhour.com/resources. And a little bit of the housekeeping. So if you have specific questions about the topics that we're talking about here today, please put those in the Q&A. It makes it a lot easier to not lose them as they go through the chat or the comments, the general comments. Please put them in the Q&A. We do have some folks at Katana also helping here with some question and answering of the more technical questions about their service. So please put them in the Q&A so that we can either answer them live, answer them through text, or we can follow up post the webinar as well. If you have just general comments of "Burr, it's cold here too, and I had to put on my mittens," please put them in the chat. And then, of course, we have the link there for the handouts as well as the webinar archive. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the different types of inventory tracking, just in general in a business workflow. What we've seen of the clients that we've talked to, or the small businesses that we've talked to over the course of our tenure, is it really falls into three buckets of they're not tracking. They're tracking in a way of either periodic versus perpetual, and then there's various different inventory workflows that inventory, businesses with inventory tend to need, and we'll kind of unpack some of those things. And then we'll talk about some of the things that work well with tracking that in QuickBooks Online, and then some other things that might require another solution. And then we'll talk about one such solution, which is Katana, which is joining us today. And Shawn will kind of hack through that and give us a high-level overview of that. But first, we'll start off with a poll. Our first poll will be not on my screen. Where did it go? There it is. What version of QuickBooks are you using and support with your client? Maybe QuickBooks Online only, QuickBooks Desktop only, both QuickBooks Online and Desktop. Maybe you're completely virtual, QBO and zero, or you don't have a preference. While those answers are filing in, Michelle, do you have any thoughts about inventory in general? I mean, that's one of those things that either you like it or you don't, or you're kind of torn about it, right?
Yes. Well, when it comes to messes with clients, the two biggest messes that we usually come across are inventory and payable, because the clients can make those big messes. So these are areas where the clients, they always need our help. And so it's really, if you like to clean up a good mess, this is a great area.
If you like messes, inventory is your thing. Right?
The clients really need our help in these areas to not only clean up the mess, but help them prevent the mess in the first place, and to teach them and train them the proper way to account for and track their inventory so they don't have these messes. So it's very rewarding to clean it up and fix it, and then to prevent it from happening going forward. But you also have to have clients that are trainable, and they're not all like that. So know thy client is very important, and having clients that will work with you is very important. And so we're going to talk about those three different options. And it's important to understand the client's capabilities and the client's commitments as well, because they're an important part of having a successful system, is the client's commitment to it as well. So,
right, that is a good point. You do need to have a coachable, trainable client who will listen to the advice.
Yes,
one of the two.
I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. I don't advocate violence on your clients. I'm just kidding.
Although we might want to, we do not want to actually beat our clients.
Or just let them see the stick. You don't have
Yeah.
to use it. Show them the carrots, but let them see the stick.
There we go.
I'm teasing, I'm teasing.
The Teddy Roosevelt of accountants. All right. So it looks like for the most part, both online and desktop is the winner today. We do have some QuickBooks Online faithful only, and then we also have our desktop only folks as well. So wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in the past. So if you have some interest in learning a little bit more about maybe what a prior Power Hour that we've done, back in 2019, we talked about some 6 common mistakes in inventory, and we talked pretty well about things that you can do at desktop and things that are in QuickBooks Online. So it's a really good overview there. I tried to embed it in the slides, and it doesn't seem to want to play here. And I'm not going to play it today because we're going to be talking about other things today. But there's a link there for it on Michelle's YouTube as well. We did in the last couple of weeks, Michelle Dalchi and myself have been doing a weekly discussion on the Workshop Wednesday about e-commerce fundamentals, which is kind of a subset of inventory management, right? Because that's going to be one of those unique nuances when it comes to in managing your inventory, as if you're managing it inside of the e-commerce space of selling in multiple locations, multiple places online. So we talk a little bit about the inventory discussion there. I think Rachel is joined us today. I'm not sure if she's there or not. I can't see the chat flying by, but I'm sure she's there. She said she was going to be, but there's a link there for our inventory discussion specifically, and we talk about other things as well, like fulfillment and getting your sales into QuickBooks Online as well. So those are some resources for another time if you need more information. So we're going to talk a little bit about the types of tracking inventory and types of client needs, and we want to kind of break it down into, well, I'm not tracking it at all, and Michelle and I were talking that there's actually a case for that, and so we'll talk a little bit about that. Materials and supplies, where it's not necessarily stuff, and this is where my Dan analogies come to play, where I've kind of broken this inventory management into 3 different versions of what you do with your stuff, right? So there's perpetual and periodic inventory. We'll talk a little bit about that. But as far as what you do with your stuff, the inventory workflow requirements kind of boil down into beginning, intermediate, and advanced inventory workflows, and it's what you do with your stuff. Where I buy stuff and I sell stuff. That's a simple thing. Not so simple, but it's it's simple in terms of what happens to that stuff, because the next one is I buy stuff, I build stuff, and then I sell different stuff. So I do something to my stuff before I finally have a finished good to sell. And then the advanced level is I buy stuff. I need to know everything about my stuff before I build or sell different stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that and unpack that. So let's first talk about the type of client or the inventory management workflow where they're not tracking it at all. And typically this shows up as, well, I got a bill from a vendor which has some supplies on it, and I account for it all in purchases or cost of goods sold at that moment. So Michelle, talk a little bit about that process and when that's a good use for some clients.
Well, for a lot of these small businesses, they don't have the time or the commitment to really track it all. And especially we were talking about some of the smaller businesses that are making things, whether it's things with recipes or making things on Etsy, where it's really hard to track those things because of the nature of what they're doing and the fact that they don't have the time or the commitment to really enter all those details and to do all that. And they're not big enough to even warrant doing that and stuff, where it would take more time and energy, tracking it and dealing with it. And it's just not worth it. And so you really do want to keep things simple for them, and just, keeping some kind of system simple and not tracking it at all may be the right answer for them. And sometimes they do. They say, oh, I want to track it. I want to track all my costs. Or else, another great example that I had a client that was a construction client, and they would do remodeling and things like that, not new home construction, but remodeling jobs and stuff. And they actually wanted to track everything. Like, they would go buy cases of duct tape, and they wanted to track the duct tape they were using on jobs. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? First of all, you can't expect these guys to say, I checked out 10 rolls of duct tape and used 7.34 rolls of duct tape. I mean, it's not feasible. And then we also had to discuss materiality. Who cares? It's a duct tape. It's a roll of duct tape. It's not material. It's de minimis. It's supplies. That's materials to do the job. So, we also have to talk about what is inventory and supplies and materials that you use on the job. Even though they have, they want to buy a lot of it and keep it in stock so they have it ready to go to use on the jobs. And that's where they'll say, well, I want to track it so I know when to reorder it. And that's where Shawn, he says, we can help with that, which is awesome, because these small businesses want to know when they need to reorder their materials and supplies, but that's not inventory. So there's a case for small businesses that don't need to track their inventory, and also don't track it because it's not inventory. If you don't put it on an invoice or a sales receipt, it never comes out of inventory. So we have to also talk to our clients about what is inventory. So those are just some things to think about when you're talking to clients about inventory, and when you're deciding, do we need to track inventory? So anyway, those are
all good lessons there for dealing with those folks. So we wanted to kind of unpack the term of periodic versus perpetual, as well as in terms of as it comes to inventory. So and this is something that I learned by talking to Rachel on the workshops. Just really, because it really just kind of set the light. The light bulb went off. Like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Because I always thought of, like, if you have inventory, if you're turning on inventory, and I always think of it in terms of the QuickBooks definition. Well, it's going to be tracking the on-hand quantity, but there may be a need not necessarily to be doing a perpetual versus periodic. So, as the CPA in the room here, how would you explain the difference between the two?
So let's say you have that small business that doesn't want to track inventory. They're not committed to tracking every single thing they buy and everything they sell. Because with a perpetual system, you have to record, I purchased 5 widgets and I sold 3 widgets. Every single thing you buy, you have to record the unit quantity, and every time you sell it, you record the unit quantity. And if you break something or you have spoilage or damage, you have to record an adjustment so that you're tracking every single unit of inventory. That is a perpetual inventory system. And that's what we think of when you turn on inventory in QuickBooks. That is a perpetual inventory system. The alternative is where we're not really tracking every single item. We're using a periodic system, because the IRS says you have to count your inventory periodically, not all the time. So the IRS says periodically, usually at year end, usually December 31st for a lot of companies, you have to take a physical count of your inventory. So a lot of these small businesses won't really track it throughout the year. They'll just record their purchases to cost of goods sold. Then periodically, and some of them might do it more frequently, like a restaurant, they periodically will count their inventory to see where they are and make adjustments. But some of the smaller ones, like Etsy, businesses, or some of those, they may only do it at year end, but they will count the inventory and value it to see what they have and make an adjustment to actual. And so it may only be at year end for some of those companies. but that is a periodic system where you count it physically, periodically, let's say at year end or more frequently, depending on the business, and adjust to actual. But you just record those purchases straight to cost of goods sold and adjust them periodically.
Yeah, and as Don is saying in the chat, it gets very complicated when you're got manufacturing and raw materials, combining them. And typically, what's the kind of client, or what's the tipping point that you've seen, Michelle, of, okay, you need to track perpetual inventory all the time?
When they get to a certain size, and when they get to that size, and it's not necessarily just volume of sales, but volume of activity, and it might be, a certain number of different, different locations that they're selling it now. Maybe they're selling it through different shopping channels now. Maybe they have different warehouses. Maybe it's different product lines. When they hit a certain point where they can't keep a handle on it by themselves, and they need to now really have a better handle on all their inventory and knowing where it is and being able to manage knowing where it is, so that they, can manage their inventory, answer those questions, manage the reorders and things like that. Then they really need a better understanding of it. They need to be able to commit having somebody who's going to be able to enter the information properly, because they have to have somebody to record the purchases and sales properly. So that's one of the keys. And I don't say, and this is personally, Shawn, I'm sure can give you some insights as well. I don't think it's a straight dollar amount. I think the tipping point is more based on operations. And once the business reaches a certain level of operations, whether it's selling channels or product sale, the number of product items or something, but I think it's more operationally. Once your operations hit a certain level that you mentally can't manage it, then you need a system and you need the people in place to manage that. And that's where you need to go to the Perpetual system.
And Shawn, is that would you agree with that as the inventory expert in the room? What has your experience has been at Katana?
Yeah, totally. I think what it comes down to is when the customer or your client starts to run into issues with order fulfillment. So often when you say operationally, I was thinking the exact same thing, where you are starting to extend out the fulfillment timeframe from order received to order actually arriving to the customer, or you're going in to grab inventory for a raw material or a finished good, and you actually don't have it in stock and you thought you had it. So when you start to run into these issues that actually start to affect your relationship with your customers, that's when you need to start suggesting to your client, let's check out an inventory system, because it'll solve that problem and allow your business to continue to grow.
Awesome.
Beautiful, Shawn. That's what I was thinking, and that's what you said. Perfect.
Okay. You're a very good Michelle Long interpreter. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the basic inventory workflows. Now we're only have an hour here, so we're not going to necessarily be able to go into a deep dive demonstration of how you do and set up these things. Maybe we'll have Shawn and Katana come back on to just do just that when we in a future QB Power Hour. But the simple thing of I buy stuff and I sell the same stuff. Typically, and Rachel coined this, it's a reseller. It's a reseller of hard goods, right? So I don't do anything to that inventory item from the time that I purchase it and I sell it, right? And these are some of the examples are apparel or toys and games, sporting goods, right? You buy a bat and you put it on the shelf and you sell it, right? So you've got your shelves and you've got your way to market and sell these things, but you don't do anything to that stuff between the time that you start, from the time that you buy it and the time that you sell it. Maybe you bundle it together, right? Like a gift basket type of thing, but you're not necessarily changing or altering the item itself, right? So you've got individual SKUs and those types of things. So then it gets a little bit more complicated when you talk about I buy stuff, I build stuff. So somebody was in the Q&A was talking about, well, I sell chairs. Like, how do I create the assembly item? Where I'm buying the raw materials, I'm turning that those raw materials into something else. That's more of an assembly process where it's a bill of materials where you're going to be putting in the components of what it takes to make one of those things. Maybe there's non-inventory types of things like you were talking about earlier about the supplies of the duct tape, or the in this case of a chair, the glue that you're going to be using to do that, to make that finished good. You've got some, the Etsy sellers of the world. COVID has exploded that channel of people doing those types of things where they buy tumblers or do individual custom items, but they're taking something and then turning it into something else, or they're buying in bulk and then selling individually. So you've got your unit of measure set, where you have a case and then you break it into individual quantities to sell. So this gets a little bit more advanced, but not completely advanced, because when we work into I buy stuff, I build, I move, I have plans for my stuff before I build or sell other stuff, where we have stuff in different locations. Maybe they're on field service trucks or bin locations where you have shelves and a warehouse, and you want to make sure that you located where that is, so it increases the efficiency of whoever is receiving it or picking it to be able to find it, or serial number and lot number tracking with recalls and warranty issues. Those types of things would be indispensable to know who you bought it from, and so who and when, and who and when you sold it to. The picking and packing, the receiving, planning for manufacturing runs, custom builds, the custom item, calculating landed costs. So if you want to spread those fees, which are ever increasing, of getting your raw materials to your facility, and then being able to spread that across the individual cost of the finished item or the finished good. You want to do landed costs. You've got multiple sales channels, maybe outlets, and then outsourced manufacturers. So that's a pretty exhaustive list of extra stuff for your stuff. Shawn, did we cover it all there?
Yeah, I think you did a great job. And what we're finding is, as these smaller businesses through COVID started to sort of grow through in North America and being able to supply businesses locally, they've continued to grow. And then with that growth, they've needed to add different aspects to their businesses. So maybe they're in the food and beverage industry and they had some things that they were providing. They need to add, that lot traceability, because that's a requirement to be a food and beverage producer. Or maybe they started sourcing materials from overseas and they really needed to include that landed cost now, so that they do have an accurate cost of goods sold. So a lot of these things, as businesses continue to scale and grow, they start to not need necessarily all of these things, but certainly a few of them. And that's where a software can really help and be much more support in that business continuing to grow, rather than using Excel. Because often a lot of these businesses will try to use Excel kind of and have the QuickBooks Online running in parallel. And the problem with that is you just aren't updating the two systems continuously, and it just becomes error prone and inaccurate.
Yeah, because we were talking about the AI this last month, and the tech trends that when we talked to Ted Callahan at QuickBooks headquarters, he was talking about the way that you can, as a business, can make better decisions is have accurate information instantaneously, and that would be super helpful. So if you've got disjointed systems like an Excel spreadsheet and QuickBooks Online, you may get there may be some gap between the time of one talking to the other. So if you have something that works in concert with each other, then you end up having better information to make those decisions, right, Shawn?
Totally agree with that. And I would add one point to that is having accurate information, certainly, but having accurate information that's available. And so that's where, when you look at cloud solutions versus an on-premise solution, a cloud solution that has an open API allows you to extend out that solution much further and adopt technology much faster. So if you're looking to kind of adopt and utilize the newest and greatest technology within your business, you really need to source out solutions in a technology stack that will enable that through an open API in the cloud.
Got it. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you can do inside of the different versions of QuickBooks to be able to track some of these inventory workflows. So we're talking about QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks in the cloud, or inventory tracking in the cloud. So let's lead off with what you can do inside of QuickBooks Online. So first, you have to be on Plus or Advanced, but the functionality, the difference between those two flavors is not going to be any different when it comes to inventory tracking. You're going to have the same core functionality in Plus versus Advanced. Of course, you have the other options of custom reports and those types of things that might give you better information or be able to extract better information if you went with Advanced. But as far as the core functionality of I buy stuff and I sell stuff, that feature set is the same between the two. It's important to note now that the cost basis is FIFO. So that means that you have to run your financial reports on an accrual basis because on a cash basis, the FIFO recording of cost is it's non-existent, right? So you do need to run it on an accrual basis inside of QuickBooks because of the FIFO cost basis calculation. But it's basic inventory tracking. There's no assemblies, there's no multiple unit of measure. You do have SKUs and reorder points. So it's ideal for those resellers of quantities. I buy stuff and I sell stuff, right? So it's tracking the quantities on hand. You have all of the things that flow into those workflows, purchase orders, into receiving documents. You don't have one thing you don't have in QuickBooks Online is a document that doesn't affect accounts payable, right? So if you're receiving things and then getting a bill later, that workflow is not going to be handled very well inside of QuickBooks Online. You're either going to be receiving it on a certain day or not, and then you receive it and then the bill at the same time. So that's something important to note. Any other tidbits that I missed there, Michelle, that you might want to add on to with QuickBooks Online tracking?
No, I think you did a great job. I did mention to people that they should take the advanced training because it's really good and there's a great guide with details there that they can have access to.
Yeah. So this is the list of things when it comes to tracking things with inventory online inside of inventory. There's no advanced inventory management. That's a nebulous term, but there's no sales orders, right? So the concept of a sales order is it's a non-posting document, but it does take away the available quantity so that I don't sell out from underneath somebody else. I mean, that functionality is non-existent in QuickBooks Online. You can use estimates as sales orders, but it doesn't have that deduction from the available quantity. Partial invoicing sometimes is unavailable. The lack of omni-channel sales consolidation. Shawn, what is that?
I know, isn't that word a little crazy? It's like an industry term, but essentially, if you're selling through, say, Shopify, but you also sell maybe point of sale, or you're also selling on Etsy, like you had described earlier. Well, if you're selling across multiple sales channels, it's difficult to bring in that demand across all those sales channels. And then further to that, it's very difficult. I don't think it's possible to update the inventory at those different sales channels so that your inventory is accurate that you're showing on your website as far as what you can actually sell. And that's something that Katana could help with.
Yeah, there is, when we talked about it, the future of commerce, the commerce tab in QuickBooks Online, that's kind of like a combination of periodic with these omni-channel sales consolidations, right? So if you are actually tracking inventory, that's not really your best choice for getting the sales into QuickBooks Online using the Shopify, Amazon, or eBay sales channel functionality in QuickBooks Online, because it doesn't affect your inventory. It's more of like a hybrid periodic inventory adjustment that gets your sales in, great, but it doesn't do anything with the value of your inventory adjustment. So you end up having to do those periodic adjustments to your inventory valuation. There's no production planning, shop floor data collection, it's unavailable. Really no real-time job costing when it comes to inventory, and it's pretty difficult to scale or to grow. Like you reach the glass ceiling pretty quickly is really what we're boiling down to. But what about desktop? Desktop has been around for decades. 32 versions, I believe, is the actual count this day, or maybe it's 34. But Enterprise Platinum has a lot of advanced inventory functionality. It gives you that available quantity, how much you're able to sell, negative quantity warnings. There's an enhanced inventory receiving. So if you have that event where you receive merchandise and then you receive the bill later, you can separate those into two events. You can auto cost and price updates. So as the price changes, there is landed cost. There's multiple multiple locations. Some of those things are built into the enterprise desktop or platinum edition, but there's drawbacks. Just like there's gum on the shoe, right? You've got installation and setup. There's user license and access to be concerned about, because you've got everything inside of one place, which might be a solution, right? Great, I would like to have everything in one place, but then you have to. The flip side of that coin is you want to make sure that you got to pay for a user license for that person to access just certain areas, and then you got to set that up. And then there's also environment issues of, how do I do this remotely if we need to, or there's Windows permissions and things of that nature. And then to your point, Shawn, of what you said about an open API, there are integrations that integrate into QuickBooks, but they have to be supported in that environment that they're in as well. And it might not be the most cost-effective solution that's out there, because especially if you need a hybrid, best of both worlds, where I have online access to a desktop software, you're looking at a cloud hosting solution or an infrastructure to be able to remotely access that system, and that's going to have an additional cost associated with it as well. So that's a lot of things there. So let's take a little break in the action here and just throw out another poll question of what types of inventory clients do you have? Do you have, it's just resellers, or it's e-commerce, retail, maybe they're tracking multiple locations, large manufacturing operations, or maybe I don't even want to take on inventory, especially after hearing some of the horror stories that we're talking about today.
So I have a question for Shawn. Melissa would like to know, what about when a client pays for inventory in advance, like a month in advance before receipt? She's using a goods in transit asset account. What do you do when you prepay for inventory?
So in Katana, you would accept that prepayment within QuickBooks Online, and you would have your purchase order created within Katana, but you wouldn't receive it in. So essentially, you can create that purchase order. You can then send it over to QuickBooks Online as a bill, and then post the payment to it. And then once that inventory is received in, it'll hit your inventory value at that point.
Okay. So in QuickBooks, it sounds like using a clearing account, like an asset account, like she set up. It sounds like that is a good kind of workaround there, putting it in a prepaid asset account, yes, and then moving it. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. And Rachel has some good examples of that. I think she made a comment there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. So, I forgot to stop sharing, because we're going to pass this over to Shawn so we can go at his pace.
Okay, cool.
Rather than him saying, well, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Let me go ahead and share the results while you're doing that. It does look like, there we go. Looks like about 44% light manufacturing and resellers are the tops there, as well as retail. So right across the board there. And then we've got some e-commerce, large manufacturing, some drop shipping, those types of things. So running in the gamut of inventory workflows. So, Shawn, I'll turn it over to you. We have about 20 minutes to burn through all of this this initial discussion here of what Katana is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's quite a few slides here. I'll try and keep it high level, tell some stories as we go along here. But what is Katana? So Katana is a cloud inventory solution that helps businesses manage their inventory as well as their production and manufacturing. And then we integrate really well into QuickBooks Online, as well as those different e-commerce solutions that are out in the market, like Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Amazon. And so we help bring all that information together to enable businesses to run a bit more effectively and have better visibility and control over their inventory. And you might ask where the name Katana comes from. Dan had asked me it yesterday. Our founder of the company actually had a manufacturing facility, and he went to market to try and find something, and he couldn't. And so that's where Katana ended up being born from, sort of working and developing the solution for that manufacturing facility. And then as they were coming up for a name, they were also learning more about lean manufacturing and the Toyota way. And so that's where we sort of get the idea of a katana, which is a Japanese sword, and sort of stealing some of that idea of creating a lean and automated environment, enabling businesses to continue to grow.
So it has nothing to do with Deadpool.
It has nothing to do with Deadpool. Great movie, but
right.
not related to Katana.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so Katana, we have around 1,700 customers today, and most of those customers are in North America. And one of the things that we really take pride in is the customer feedback that we receive relative to Katana. And if you were to go to QuickBooks Online App Store or the Shopify App Store, you'll see there will be hundreds of reviews, and the average review rating is about 4.8 out of 5 stars. And we really attribute that to a few things, but one is the ease of use of the system. So it really is intuitive. You can get up and running quite quickly and learn how the system operates and functions relatively fast, as well as the customer support that we provide from our team. So those are two things that we hear often accountants and bookkeepers are focused on when they're partnering with a software solution, is that it's easy enough for them to understand and can kind of help their clients out with it, but also that the support's there to make sure that they are supported when they're kind of having to get back to their customer with some information, so that they're keeping in good standing with their customer. So what does the ideal customer look like at Katana? You'll see on the right here, sort of there's a bunch of different industries. So you might have apparel, companies that manufacture maybe furniture, cosmetics. We work well in the food and beverage industry because we do have that lot and batch traceability. On the electronics industry, we do really well because we have serialization. So if you have customers that need serial number tracking, we have that also built into the product. But namely, one of the main areas that Katana has a lot of success is if you were to look at a specific technology stack. So if the customer has Shopify and QuickBooks Online and they're managing inventory, they're likely a good candidate to take a look at Katana to help them manage that inventory more effectively, ensure that their cost of goods sold is accurate, and have a nice smooth workflow between their e-commerce store, creating that demand through to their inventory solution to help them fulfill that demand, and then rolling that up into the financial solution so they can run their business effectively.
Now, immediately, when you're talking about advanced inventory options, and I see the chats in here and some Q&As, how does this compare to others that are out there? Where does Katana fit? Because one of the things that really impressed me the most is what you guys call is your transparency of like what lane do you drive in when it comes to inventory, and where that fits in the scope of all of the other inventory solutions that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main ones that we see in the market that we would consider competitors might be like Sim7 Core and Fishbowl. So if we're looking at Fishbowl, comparison might be that they're more of an on-premise solution. They really haven't made that transition to the cloud. And I believe that they're coming out with a cloud solution, but it's going to be a lighter product. I don't believe we'll have manufacturing. And so if your client is looking to go and move to the cloud, as well as you're looking to offer your services and extend those out, often a cloud solution makes a lot more sense for an accounting firm to support their clients. That's where Katana would be a differentiator from that solution. When you look at Sin7 Core, what we've heard is it does have some more functionality built into the software. They're a little bit further down the road, but built into the software, what we hear is it can be a little bit more complex and take quite a bit longer to actually get up and running. So the total cost of ownership can be more expensive when you're looking at something like Sin7 Core. So Katana's more of an affordable solution, but we might be missing some of the features that something like Sin7 Core could potentially offer. But most of those things are on our roadmap, and we'll actually have a lot of that covered off. And one of the reasons way we differentiate just overall is ease of use. And I invite anyone that's here to go and start a trial. You can get a free 14-day trial, and you can sign up to our partner program, and we'll extend out that trial so you can really see how the system operates. And that'll be a great way to see that ease of use in action, as well as the support our team offers. And then as far as yeah, go ahead, Michelle. What's up?
Well, Shawn, I was just going to say, we're talking a lot about the bigger kind of companies and the bigger packages, but you guys also offer a $99 package. And can you mention something about all of these smaller companies and the growth that you saw with them over like COVID and all of those, because there's a lot of our clients that are that size as well. I don't want them to get overlooked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where Katana does really well. So where Katana really skyrocketed was during that COVID period, where there was a lot of these local manufacturers starting to kind of pop up and need something to help them continue to grow in these, e-commerce sales that they were making, and they needed something to help them manage that inventory. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
We lost. Can you hear me?
I can hear
or was it me?
Dan, I can hear you, and I can hear Shawn.
Okay, I can hear you guys as well.
Okay, yeah, it came back. I don't know what happened.
All good. So during COVID, our Katana grew about 3x in that first year, and we just saw a ton of customers coming in that were smaller. They needed, many of them actually were running the businesses out of their garages, where they saw a need in the market. They were manufacturing these goods, and they needed to track some of those raw materials and know what they needed to buy to make sure they could fulfill the orders that they were having to start rolling. And so that's where we saw a lot of growth within the company. And we still have a lot of customers that are under that $1 million in annual revenue mark that are using Katana with that $99 plan to kind of get up and running, get some systems in place to give them that better visibility, and then allow them to continue to grow and scale. So it's definitely much more attainable for some of those small businesses from a cost perspective, but also from a usability perspective, where they can understand sort of where the sales orders are coming in, how to set up that inventory, and connect it even to QuickBooks Online or Shopify. It's really straightforward, and almost anyone can do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's press on, because
cool.
We're coming on the top of the hour. We may go a little longer if you're okay with that. But we want to be cognizant or aware of the hour for the folks that are joining us.
Totally. I'll keep moving along here. So how Katana helps. We do have that real-time inventory, and that's a really key aspect when you think of Katana. So often these companies are pulling in those sales in real time from that Shopify store, and it's going to come into Katana, and it's going to create demand for that finished good, which they need to fulfill. But if that finished good is made up of components, it'll create demand for those components immediately as well, so they can go out and buy the materials they need based on that demand rolling in real time. So it really helps companies make decisions as those orders are coming in, where most solutions, you would actually have to have that order come in. Maybe they have to import their orders into a system because they can't connect to that e-commerce channel. And then they have to go and create the manufacturing orders to actually create demand for the raw materials. In Katana, we do that all in one step. So you actually automatically are seeing the demand for those raw materials in real time. And that creates a really nice flow for the purchase order management. We can connect to multiple sales channels and pull that demand in. We've got manufacturing operations, so we can track those shop floors on those jobs on the shop floor. We can schedule the shop floor with drag and drop functionality, so you can prioritize your jobs really easily out on the shop floor. And it's where I came from in a manufacturing environment. I used to work in the sort of the scheduling area of the company. And the way we would organize was with paper. We'd sort of stack up the most important orders, would go on top. With Katana, we've digitized that process and made it really easy to make sure your most important orders are being worked on the shop floor. And then, of course, we connect directly into QuickBooks Online. So what's happening in the market? I'll just highlight a couple key things. So the trend to moving to hybrid order fulfillment. So more and more manufacturers are offering a customized product that is specific to that individual customer because they can charge more for it. And that's where you need this sort of make to order workflow enabled, but also they still have a standardized product that they can sell at a lower price point. So a lot of our customers, about 70% of them, utilize both a make to stock and make to order workflow. Another thing that we're seeing is that they're selling through multiple sales channels and fulfilling those orders in multiple ways. So they might buy and sell some products in that resell format. They might manufacture some goods. They may even outsource manufacture some products and have someone else build it for them. And so those different workflows require software to help track everything that's going on within the business. And Katana has that flexibility to help those businesses utilize or operate in those different workflows seamlessly. And then one things we hear often is when clients are coming into some of the accountants we work with that don't have a system in place, their financials tend to be really out of whack if they have inventory. So one quote was that 80% of the clients that come in, their financials are a mess because they're managing inventory. And I think Michelle had said yesterday, she's pretty sure it's 100%. So there's a lot of opportunity for accountants and bookkeepers to add value to businesses that manage inventory. Michelle had alluded to it earlier, that you can really help a business run much more effectively and have a major impact on these businesses that are managing inventory, because typically their financials are in dire straits. One of the things here is this sort of resource challenge that's on the rise. And a key thing here is 75% of businesses are struggling to attract and retain a quality workforce. And one of the things that I think are an opportunity for bookkeepers and accountants is to capitalize on that from an outsourced service perspective. So, getting that business on a monthly subscription to the services that you're providing and extending out that service offering beyond maybe traditional bookkeeping and starting to offer advice around what technology stacks would be most advantageous for them. And we've seen Rachel do a lot of that in partnering with Katana. She was brought up earlier, and she's really taken her bookkeeping business, has that expertise in e-commerce, and is really becoming a resource and consultant for the clients that she's working with and helping them set up the software that's going to enable them to continue to grow. And we'll keep moving on here. Reshoring and manufacturing and offshoring accounting, sort of the manufacturing is growing. We're seeing nice growth rates in North America around manufacturing coming back from overseas, as well as these local manufacturers. There's a lot more demand in the market for people to buy locally. So there's more customers available for accountants and bookkeepers out there, but there's also more complexity in those businesses. And those businesses can't offshore the financial services that they need. They can't have AI come in and do their books, because it's more complicated. So you can add a lot more value into those businesses. And so some of the main struggles that we're seeing, and I hear consistently, and I'll just touch on one, is inaccurate cost of goods sold. So if a company has inventory or they manufacture, typically they have a big challenge in tracking and understanding what that cost of goods sold is. And that can lead into a lot of issues with the business actually understanding how profitable they are. So with Katana, we really have a really solid real-time cost of goods sold calculation that's going on. We're looking at landed costs. We're looking at the operational costs as well as the materials that are rolling up to your finished product. And then we're syncing that cost of goods sold to the invoice over in QuickBooks Online when that sales order is shipped out. So there's a really nice integration there to roll up that cost of goods sold.
All right, let's blaze through high level things that Katana does. And then we'll hopefully get to some Q&A near the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. So we talked about it. Bring all your sales channels together. This is sort of an image of what the sales order screen would look like. And we have the sort of green, yellow, red stoplights to help indicate what is going on with that particular piece of information and should you go and take a look at it. Then we look at your inventory insights. So a really solid real-time inventory screen that allows you to see what's expected based on open manufacturing orders or purchase orders, what's committed from your sales order demand, what's your reorder point, and then what do you have missing or in excess of that you might need to go out and purchase or manufacture in your inventory. And then we have the ability to really have a seamless workflow to creating those purchase orders based on your demand. So you can issue your purchase orders right from that inventory screen and then email that directly out of the system to your supplier. And then production. So if they are a manufacturer, your client is a manufacturer, you can track the operational costs. You can send that out to the shop floor and they can track that through production, as well as the material costs. And you can have that roll up into your total cost of material, as well as the labor that's used on the job.
I really like this part. This is really what struck me when I saw watch the demonstration, is that you can, and this is what you were talking about, where you digitize that priority, where you can just drag and drop a particular production run, and it will in real time go out and make sure that you have the available quantities to make or fulfill that order, and give you that green light, yellow light, or no red light, right?
Absolutely. And then also identify when you're expected to finish that order based on the availability of material and compare that to the deadline. So then you can identify, oh, this order is going to be due after my promise date to the customer. So it's a great way that you can know ahead of time that I can call the customer up or I can call my supplier up to try and, make sure that the customer isn't unhappy. Okay. Financial stability. So really strong integration at QuickBooks Online. We continue to improve on that. So we'll continue to work and update some of the things. So we're meeting with Rachel and some of our other partners this morning to understand what is missing within that QuickBooks Online integration, that we can even make it better and a stronger integration. So something we're continuing to work on and improve. And today it is really strong. It's making journal entries. We're increasing the inventory value. We're decreasing when you do a purchase order, when you're creating a sales order and an invoice, it's going to decrease your inventory value, increase your cost of goods sold. So all that is happening automatically with that QuickBooks Online integration. And
you have a nice slide that kind of, this is what I was talking about. Yeah. So yeah. It gives a direction of which way is what's bi-directional and what is one way or the other. So the transaction goes over into QuickBooks. If it's a sales order, it turns into an invoice, and then you'll be able to take it from there. Bills or purchase orders and whatnot, they come over, and then you can continue with that. Somebody was asking, does it synchronize with bill.com? Not per se through Katana, but you would then be sending that over into QuickBooks and then paying the bill through there, right?
You got it, exactly. Yeah. So QuickBooks Online is going to handle the invoices, the bills, and then Katana is going to handle the sales orders and the purchase orders, and then we're going to communicate, by sending those over from Katana to QuickBooks.
All right. Any other? And then you have like this other nebulous one, right?
And we don't need to go into this. We'll send out the deck after the presentation. But this just kind of gives you an idea of sort of the different things that are being handled within Katana. So sales, inventory, purchasing, and then within that, and then what's being sent over to the financial solution with your cost of goods sold, as well as some of the other information there. And then I don't think we
tech stack flow chart.
Yeah, exactly. Just to kind of give some idea around what's going on. But why don't we open it up for questions? We're right at the end of the hour here. Mm-hmm. I don't need to, there's only a few more slides. We'll send out the deck after. Why don't we open it up for some questions?
Yeah, I think what version of QuickBooks Online do they need? Do they need does it work with all versions, or does it work with does it work better with certain versions of, what flavor of QuickBooks Online?
So it will work with all versions of QuickBooks Online. So when we do send over the inventory into QuickBooks Online, it will often the items are set up as non-inventory items within QuickBooks Online, and so it will work with I think any version of QuickBooks Online. I think there's 4 different levels to it. Though most of our customers, we did a study on this, most of our customers are using the advanced, the second, not the most
plus. That would be plus, yeah.
Yeah,
Plus.
so the one down from plus would be, I think, advanced. And so that's what most of our customers are currently using today. I don't know exactly why, but I think it was 75% of our customers that are using QuickBooks Online are on advanced.
Yeah, I think class is probably one of the key features for Plus, that you'll be able to classify, these various sales channels, Shopify versus Etsy versus eBay, those types of things. So that is probably that, and tracking inventory quantities might be the classifications. What do you think, Michelle?
Yeah, I agree with you about using QBO Plus for the reporting purposes, to be able to get the kind of reports that you want and need and stuff like that. The one thing that would be nice about advanced would be able to have the advanced reporting and to be able to use Spreadsheet Sync to do some additional reporting if you wanted. But there is that additional cost. So I don't know about that. You'd have to weigh that.
Michelle, did you see any questions fly by while Shawn was doing his thing?
Somebody was asking if Katana will integrate with QBO Global. Is it US only, or is it available for the Canadian versions? And what about any of the other global versions?
It is available globally. I think that is one of the unique differentiators. One of our partners that's in the QuickBooks Online ecosystem had identified Katana as the only solution in the market that could work with his clients globally. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he had said, why he decided to partner with Katana. And he's got customers in Italy and in South America. So he's got sort of customers all over the globe, and utilizes Katana as his go-to inventory solution.
Great. So I think, and one of the things I wanted you to point out, Shawn, is the person who started Katana was looking for his own solution, right? Like, and that's one of the things I think is so great about some of the folks that have partnered with the QB Power Hour, is that they went out looking for a solution, didn't find it, and then took it upon themselves to create their own. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it was a larger manufacturer that he's actually based out of Estonia, and he had a mid-sized manufacturing company, and they were looking for an inventory and manufacturing solution. And what he had to look at was like SAP and Oracle and these larger systems that were really complex and extremely expensive. And that's where something like Katana came to light. His best friend was actually one of the developers of Skype. I don't know if you guys remember Skype, the calling platform. And that was actually developed in Estonia. And so him and the Skype developer partnered up to start developing Katana. And so that's where it began, is he went to market to try and find an easy to use cloud-based manufacturing inventory solution, and he wasn't able to find one that was cost effective. And so he decided to kind of work together and created the company. And I guess it's about 7 years later now, we've got almost 2,000 customers using the system globally.
Awesome. And you guys have been nice enough to give our listeners or our attendees an extra 30% off if you go through through our friend Jason, who's been lurking in the background answering questions. The link's on the QB Power Hour page. It's also in the slides if you download it. And if you're listening to the podcast later, it will be in the show notes. So All of those things are available there. We appreciate you joining us today. We did go over a little bit, so we appreciate those that hung around for a little bit. Any final thoughts, Michelle?
Well, I just was going to point out that Jason just put in the chat that it does work in the cannabis industry. And so that is good to know because they are always needing to track inventory. That is a very important thing in that industry. So that is very good to know. But I think this has been awesome, Shawn. You guys have a great solution and you've done a fabulous job. So thank you guys for coming, and Jason in the background. So thank you guys very much. It is very impressive and wonderful. So thank you guys. And thank you, Dan.
All right. Well, we will see you next time on the QB Power Hour, where we'll be discussing how to download something from QuickBooks Online Advanced into Excel, so you don't need QuickBooks Desktop. So for those of you that are virtual only but still have a desktop client, or want to have something tangible, that would be a good one to tune into. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.